am Heather Hunt, the Program Manager for the Office of Compliance Monitoring and Evaluation at the CDFI Fund. And our business unit is responsible for ensuring that whether you're an applicant to one of our program rounds or have received funding, that we set you up for success and do all that we can do to get you in compliance with the terms and conditions of your assistance agreement. And it looks like Tonica is now on the line, so it's probably a good time to go ahead and do some introductions. So on the webinar today, we have myself and then Tonica Pittman, who is trying to connect. And then from Treasury's Office of Civil Rights in Equal Employment Opportunity Office, we have two of our colleagues who have graciously agreed to give their time to help with the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lydia to introduce herself real quickly.
Hi, thank you, Heather. My name is Lydia Ponte Morales, and I serve as the Assistant Director for External Civil Rights. And like Heather said, in the Office of Civil Rights and Equal Employment Opportunity of the Department of the Treasury. So our program's goal is to make sure that Treasury funds are not used to discriminate, and also to make sure that our recipients, our applicants, have everything that they need in place to show civil rights compliance. So I'm very happy to be here today, looking forward to answering the questions, and I'm going to pass it along to Marcia Small.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marcia Small-Bowman. I also work for the Treasury's Office of Civil Rights and Equal Employment Opportunity. I work alongside Lydia, and we have been working on conducting pre-awards, and we are here to partner with the CDFI Fund and answer any of your questions that you might have regarding the application process as it relates to external civil rights. Back to you, Heather, Tonica.
Great, thank you both. And it looks like Tonica's working through her technical glitches.
I'm here, you can hear my voice, but I see my face.
We can hear you, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tonica Pittman. I'm with the CDFI Fund. I'm with the OCME, Office of Compliance Monitoring Evaluation Team. And I'm happy to be here. Hopefully this time around, we'll get it together. Thank you guys for joining us.
Great, thank you all. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the presentation. What I'm going to do, Tonica, since you're having issues with your screen, I'm going to go ahead and put up the non-discrimination page on the CDFI Fund website, so you can kind of see that, and as you give your introduction, we can kind of point to those specific sections on the website as applicable. So Tonica, while I'm doing that, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Today's session, as Heather stated before, it will be recorded and it will also be posted on our website. Just a few other housekeeping points. I will be including some web links for additional resources to kind of help you guys go through the whole Title VI process. So what I will include in the chat would be the Treasury Equal Opportunity poster. That's a new poster from OCRE, so that will be in the link. I will also include links to the FAQs and also the user guide. So once I would do that in a few seconds, but as far as the raising your hand, you can raise your hand if you want. If you have questions, you can also include your questions in the chat. Either way, we will make sure that we will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. So to give you guys a high level of the Title VI worksheet and the review process, Starting this year, starting fiscal year 2023, the CDFI fund required all grant award applicants to complete the Title VI worksheet. This will be completed once each calendar year for grant programs with their applications to basically assist the CDFI in making sure that our applicants are compliant with the Treasury regulations in implementing the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. As far as the review process, so how this works is that once the funding round opens up, applicants will submit, or is required, I should say, to submit the Title VI worksheet. So the worksheet is completed in Amos, just like how you would complete the SF 424. So say for instance, you're applying for CDFI program. So to make sure that you submit your Title VI worksheet, what you would do is complete the worksheet in Amos. And there's I guess you would say like a space on your Amos, in your Amos account. So you just click on the Title VI, create the Title VI worksheet, and then you will link it to your application. So in order for you to link it to your application, you have to open the CDFI application, and then you will link it by making sure that the Title VI number for that worksheet is included in the space that's where you have to link it at in the application. Once you've done that, you would click save. It would give you a green checkbox, and then you are successfully, eligible to move through the application process. If you have questions as far as like how to actually link the Title VI worksheet, you can always submit a service request. We're always here to help you answer any questions you may have regarding submitting your Title VI. Once we have all the Title VI worksheets completed or submitted, I should say, you will be given a date specifically in your NOFA that states when is the last day to submit your Title VI. So once we have completed that, we will, meaning OCME, will make sure that we have all the applicants that are planning to apply for CDFI fund or any other grant program under the CDFI fund. And we will include those to make sure that they're eligible to move forward in the review process. Please let me know if I'm speaking too fast. So that is basically how the review process work, or how to submit the Title VI worksheet. After the worksheet is completed, we will move down to the worksheet logistics. So just like I said before, the worksheet is submitted for each, is submitted once each year. So if you have submitted one for CDFI fund, you're good to go. You don't have to submit it for if you're applying for this upcoming, say for instance, BEA. We would use that same Title VI worksheet for the BEA worksheet or the BEA funding round. Let's see, what else do we have? As far as the process of it, once this worksheet is submitted, it is reviewed by the CDFI fund. If an applicant is not compliant with the Title VI after the CDFI fund and OCRE complete our review, OCRE will reach out to the applicant to bring them into compliance prior to dispersing any award funds. So we have, say for instance, we have a funding round, we have time period. So we move forward, we make sure that we work together, OCME and OCRE work together as far as reviewing the information that is submitted. If we have any concerns or if we have questions, we do reach out to the applicant to ask for additional information. You will receive letters stating, say, for instance, if you're found non-compliant for a question that was answered, we will specify which question was found, inaccurately. And then we would ask for proof of information. So say, for instance, you click you answered the question as far as the notice, having a notice of rights poster, and you don't have that information, we send out a letter to you guys. You send it back with proof of notice of rights poster or a web link to on your website that will for external users to ask how to file for a Title VI or how to file for a complaint. You had that information on your website. Like I said, we work with you guys, OCME and OCRE, to make sure that you cure your non-compliance, and then we will send you a letter stating that you have achieved and you're in compliant. Please note that this process does not stop you from going through the review, the application process. This is just a process that we have that's inconclusive to the application process. So it doesn't stop your application. It continues on. Your application continues on, and we will just work with you behind the scenes. Other than that, I will send it over to OCRE, so they will discuss the Title VI questions, and they will also walk through each section of the worksheet and give some highlight pointers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tonica. This is Marcia again. Heather, can you pull up the worksheet?
Seconds to change my screen. I have the worksheet up, but I have to. Can you see the worksheet right now?
We can
Yeah.
see it.
Okay, great. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the 5 sections of the Title VI worksheet. And I want to kind of provide some context about really even why we're using this. So Treasury's regulations and the Department of Justice's regulations require that we do pre-award compliance checks. And to help us assess your pre-award situation, we use this Title VI worksheet. The CDFI fund developed this worksheet. We use it and we look at your answers to see what you said, and then we work with you to help you come into compliance if possible. So as I said earlier, there are 5 sections of this worksheet. And let me know if you all, are you guys able to hear me? Does the sound okay? Okay.
Yep, you
All right.
sound
Okay. So section 1 talks about civil rights complaints. Section 2 is about notice of rights. Section 3 is about language assistance plan. Section 4 talks about subrecipient communication. And section 5 discusses non-elected board composition. We will now go and talk about the actual contents of each section. So let's start with the first section, which is civil rights complaint information. For sections 1A and 1B, we want to know, does the applicant have any pending civil rights lawsuits and investigations for the last 2 years? For example, has a member of the public filed a complaint against your organization? And we're talking about public complaints that have been filed by the public. We don't need to see your internal complaints for, the employees who have filed a complaint against your organization. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, are there any complaints that have been filed by the public against your organization alleging civil rights discrimination. For section 1C, we want to know, does the applicant have any non-compliant Title VI findings in the last 2 years? If you do, if you have, let us know. It doesn't mean that you are going to be disqualified or not eligible. We just need to have that information. For section 1D, here we wanted to know, does the applicant have any pending financial assistance award applications? For example, have you applied for assistance maybe from the Department of Housing and Urban Development? Let us know. We don't have to have specifically, you know, I applied and here's what we applied for. We just need the name and the amount if you have it. So again, answering yes to these questions, it doesn't make your organization ineligible for federal financial assistance from the fund. Yes just means that your organization will have to provide us with more information. And we will, if we find that you do not have this information, we will give you a set amount of time to cure it. So let's move to section 2. Section 2 talks about the notice of rights and program location. When we talk about notice of rights, we're talking about the information that you have provided to the public about civil rights. Have you provided them with information about what is civil rights, where to file a complaint, what type of protections they're afforded? That's what we're looking for sections 2A, 2B, and 2C. And so for here, what we would like to see is, and we've received this from many of you all. Some of you all have sent in some pictures. You let us know that it's posted in your offices. And that's great, but if you have posted the notice of rights online, share the web link with us. We'll take a look at it. If you're compliant, great, we'll move on to the next section. If not, we will work with you on how you can provide a notice. We can give you some sample language that you can use. You can link to the CDFI's poster as well as OCRE's poster. For section 2D, we want to know if your facilities are readily accessible and usable for persons with disabilities. So are people able to get into your facilities that are accessible? And have you informed the public about how to file a complaint if they feel that they have been discriminated against based on disability? So again, to show compliance, what we would be looking for is a poster, a notice of rights, sharing your web link to where you have posted this information on your website. Now let's go on to section 3. And for section 3, it talks about a language assistance plan. And what a language assistance plan is, it is basically a plan that's written. And it outlines how you will provide language assistance to persons who are limited English proficient. And so to show compliance in this area, Treasury, OCRE, we require your plan to be written and for it to be final. You provide us with a copy and we say, okay, they have this plan, it's fine, we move on, you get credit for that. Let's say you don't have a plan. We will work with you on this. We have guidance that's available. Treasury has already posted guidance on language assistance for persons who are LEP, and the guidance actually even within the guidance talks about the assessment organizations can go through when developing their plan. So again, for here, we want to know, do you have a language assistance plan? Is it final? Is it written? For section 4, this talks about subrecipient communication. In this section, we want to know, do you have a subrecipient? If you do have a subrecipient, we want to know, are you monitoring your subrecipients to make sure that they are not discriminating against them? Again, recipients are the ones who are responsible for monitoring their subrecipients. So you have some work here to do. You have to make sure that if you have a recipient, that, hey, you're monitoring them to make sure that they are also adhering and complying with civil rights laws. If you don't have a subrecipient, you can put no and move on to the next section, because this section would not apply to you. The last and final section, section 5, talks about board composition for non-elected board. So here, what we want to know is, do you have a non-elected board that has oversight over the CDFI program? If you do have a non-elected board, what's the composition of that board? Does it serve the population that it's aligned to? That's the type of information that we want. You just let us know, yes, either we have a non-elected board, or no, we don't have a non-elected board. If the composition of the board doesn't reflect the community, then provide us with an explanation. Say, you can let us know that, hey, we did conduct some research and here's the result of what happened. So I really want to stress here that if you answer to any of these questions, if you answer yes, it does not make you ineligible for funding from the CDFI fund. It simply means that we will ask you for more information. We will then try to work with you to help you to come into compliance. At this portion of the webinar, I am going to pass it over to Lydia Aponte Morales. She will conduct the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, you can either, Heather, do you want them to come offline or just put their questions in the chat?
Yeah, they can actually. So a lot of questions have been coming in throughout the presentation, and I've been responding to them as I could, but they're coming in fast and furious. So feel free. We can go ahead and start. I'm not all caught up, so we could start from there. Please also feel free if you want to raise your hand, and then I can also take you off mute if it's not easy for you to type in your question. So Lydia, with that, we can go ahead and start with the first one. It says, recent letters from OCRE require applicants to submit a copy of their LAP, but the CDFI Fund's Title VI doesn't require the submission of a LAP. At a recent webinar, OCRE staff indicated that LAPs aren't reviewed anyway. If they're not reviewed, will you consider just removing the requirement? Well, I think that was a miscommunication, and I'll let Lydia speak to that because LAPs are definitely a requirement. So take it away, Lydia.
Thank you. Yes, they are required. That's why we have that question in the worksheet. We have guidance that's coming from our regulations that require all of our recipients and the applicants to provide language access. And then Treasury published guidance about language access requirements back in 2005. And it's a document in the Federal Register that explains this is a requirement. So it's mentioned also in the Notice of Funding Opportunity for these programs, where it explains the worksheet and the requirements in the worksheet. That's in there. And it's a requirement of the statute. So language access, providing language access and it means that people who are limited English proficient can participate in your programs fully. And we want to see that. We don't want people that because of their national origin and language ability cannot apply for a loan, cannot get banking services. So that's why this is checked in during pre-award. I'm hoping that answered the question. Next question.
Thank you. So the next question is there a version of the Title VI worksheet in Spanish?
No, we do not have a version in Spanish. If you need help completing this, let us know. So we are not required as an agency to provide the application process for a grant in other languages than English. So that's one of the reasons we have not done that. But if you need assistance, please reach out.
Okay, great. And then the next question is, does public complaints include complaints to NCUA?
That's a great question. If it's a complaint to NCUA about discrimination, and NCUA, I understand, is the National Credit Union Administration. It's a lot of acronyms to remember, but that particular one, that's your regulator. And if there is a complaint filed with your regulator about civil rights discrimination, yes, that is included on that question.
Okay, next question is for 2024 FA applicants that did not have a language assistant plan in place at the time of the application, when would they need to have those plans in place?
Great question. If you answered the question in the checklist saying that you do not have a language access plan, we will contact you and we will provide a cure period of time for you to put it, for your organization to have this in place. This is a requirement that's been in place for a while. We will provide some advice in that letter about where you can find additional information, but you will have the opportunity to also reach out to us if you have any questions while you are putting your language access plan in place.
Okay.
And
I think,
can I just
sorry.
jump in on this one? I do just want to emphasize, guys, because we've gotten a lot of feedback on this. We are going to work with you to bring you into compliance. You're not going to be, if you submit the worksheet by the time frame noted in the applicable notice of funding availability, you are going to be deemed eligible. However, if, for example, you don't have a language access plan in place and we reach out to you, please work accordingly to put one into place by the timeframes noted in the communications that are going to be sent to your organization. And you will not be denied funding as long as you work accordingly to become into compliance with these Title VI requirements. So that was something we got a lot of feedback on in the past. And I do want to clarify, you're not going to be deemed ineligible if you aren't in compliance at the time of application submission, but you will need to work accordingly to become compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
In addition, so we are working right now reviewing your Title VI worksheets, and we will communicate about any requirements that are not met. However, if you know already, for example, with the language access plans, that is something that your organization doesn't have, you can start working on it. You don't have to wait for us to send you the letter. So there's a lot of information in the Civil Rights website for Treasury, in the CDFI fund page. Take a look at that, reach out with questions, but we will be communicating soon.
Okay, next question. Actually, this is a edit to a question that was asked earlier. Do you have the below language in Spanish for us to include on our website? So Lydia, this is like I guess like a blurb
Mhm.
where it says in accordance with federal law and U.S. Department of Treasury policy, this institution is prohibited from discriminating based on
Mm.
race, color. So that is actually on our website, I believe. If not, Lydia, did you have that?
So we have a sample notice on our website. We have a sample poster. And our poster has one section, it's in English, and the other one is in Spanish. So we can provide that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Heather, do you mind going to the poster?
Real quickly, so how should we, if someone does need that language, they should go ahead and just submit a service request, and then we can get that information from our colleagues and pass it along as necessary.
And I'm going to try to find the link so I can put it in the chat.
Sure. And Tonica, you wanted me to go, you said to what?
I thought there was the language on the new poster that
Mhm.
we received. Is that right, Lydia?
Yes, there is. And I'm going to put
Yes, there is. We're gonna get the link
Right there.
right there. It's in Spanish.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
And I'll put the link in the chat again. Let me go back and
poster. So there's two things in this notice and in the poster that we want you to have. We want you to tell people, your customers, your participants, that there's this protection against discrimination and also how to file a complaint. So that information, the two things that we like to see are in that poster. And we were asked if it was okay to use this and brand it. Yes, you can put your organization's entity there. It's not a problem. And this is a sample. You don't have to follow this, but this is available to you if you want to use it.
And I just put the link in the chat for everyone, so you should be able to access that.
Okay. Next question. In section 2B, how explicitly available does the information need to be on the site? Does it have to be prominent, front and center, or can it be behind a link?
That's a great question. So my world is civil rights, so I want to see it prominently, but as long as you have it where people can find contact information for your organization, that is okay. If you have a search feature in your website and the person wants to do a search for discrimination or something similar, you want that to go in the search results.
Okay. Is it sent to the person who submitted or an authorized rep? In my experience, it varies and is sent to the CEO versus the person submitting the information. Isabel Andrews, are you referring to the letter that we will be sending out, or the Title VI worksheet that was submitted by a point of contact that's in the organization? Do you mind raising your hand?
I just unmuted her, so she should be able to talk.
Okay.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was in response to my initial question. If we were to get any sort of notification of non-compliance, who would that go to and how? So they answered it and they said it would be electronically. And then it said to have our contacts updated in AMIS. We have several people who are points of contacts varying on programs. But I was asking specifically if we were to receive some sort of notification or have to respond, who that would go to, the person who actually submitted it or like an authorized representative, because it typically in my experience, has been to the authorized representative, so like our CEO, who's then like forwarding it around, trying to figure out who that information needs to go to, right? So I think it was just clarification on that. Who the if any notifications or follow-ups are sent to, who are they sent to?
So we usually use the authorized representative as the person that we will reach out to. We do try to add another person that's kind of like, so if you have a CFO and an executive, we try to tag team add both person to the email just to make sure that we don't miss anybody.
So not the actual person submitting it then. It would be the authorized representative.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next
Thank you.
question. You're welcome. Next question is, does public complaint include complaints to NCUA?
And we already did that one.
We did, okay.
Yeah, if they asked it twice, so I'll dismiss it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, our target market is other CDFIs and we are virtually based. We do not have an office that can be visited. Does your assessment take these types of things into account?
Yes. So for us is how you serve people. If you are virtual, then your website would be the place to put the notice. Wherever people can find information about your organization. If you are a pass-through entity, meaning you get funding and then you pass it along to other institutions, then those are your subrecipients, and you need to make sure that they are compliant with these same requirements. So these other institutions would need to have notice.
Okay. Is your borrowers considered subrecipients?
That's a good question. It will depend. It will depend. Because if you are a pass-through entity, then those are subrecipients. If you are a financial institution providing loans to small business, then that small business is not a subrecipient, they're just a beneficiary of your program. So it will depend on how the assistance is being used.
Yeah, and I will point out, I think there's another there's a question right after this that says, can you provide the definition of subrecipient? And we actually do have definitions in our assistance agreements. So I just did pull one of those up and it aligns with what Lydia was just describing. It says, shall mean any entity that receives a transfer of assistance funds from the recipient pursuant to, and then it references the applicable sections of the assistance agreements in order to carry out part of the assistance. So what you can do is on our website, we have copies of all of our assistance agreement templates as well. And you can pull down that definition if you need it.
Okay. I think we had another one as well about subrecipients.
I think we can see, or any of the two of these were anonymous. And then Diane, did that answer your question? If not, please just let us know if you want to raise your hand and we can take you off mute.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Isabel still has that hand, might be up from earlier. Okay, thank you. All right, so I think I'm not seeing Diane raise her hand, so maybe we answered the question. So do you want to move on, Tonica?
Okay. Where do self-nominating boards fall? I have 1 minute. Where do self-nominating boards fall? I know we still have to represent the population we serve.
Mm-hmm. And that would be it. So we want to see that there is an effort from your organization to have a board that represents the communities you serve. So that would mean telling people that there is a board and then they can participate. So if you're doing that, that's what we want to see. That people know so they can self-nominate to participate. If it's a elected board, non-elected board, that you are reaching out to people in the communities that you serve so that there is a match and there's representation.
Okay. If you answer yes, you have a LAP or a language assistant plan. The questionnaire does not require you to attach a copy of your plan.
That is correct.
And Tonica, I'll take this one too, because the next question also says, if you answered yes, you post notices. The questionnaire does not ask you to attach a copy of the notice or the web links to the notice on the website. And that's also accurate. However, when you're completing this form, you're attesting that all of the information that has been provided is true and accurate. And at any time, the CDFI fund does reserve the right to request the supporting documentation from you. As part of our post-award compliance monitoring, we do conduct random desk reviews and site visits. So it's a good practice to have all of this stuff readily available if for some reason you were to be selected for one of those.
Mm-hmm. So we are talking to you in the pre-award process, but there is also on our regulations, a process for conducting post-award reviews, not only on the financial and grant making portion, but also for civil rights. So we are setting you up to be successful when we come and do our post-award compliance reviews. And right now, yes, there is an honor system, but there will be compliance checks.
Okay. If our language assistant plan indicates that we have a plan in place to serve those with limited English proficiency, but we do not currently serve any LEP members of the community, do we still need to meet requirements 3C and 3D?
So your language access plan is based on need. You do a needs assessment. If you don't have a huge population of limited English proficient individuals, you still need a plan in case you do encounter somebody that needs these services. But if you currently are not getting requests, then it doesn't, you don't have to have things that you don't need. We're not trying to put burdens that do not meet the needs of your population. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Will a recorded version of this be sent out or available? Yes, we will upload the recorded version on our website as soon as by the end of today or probably tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and we'll work with sending out a notice via our Gov Delivery listserv system. So that's where you will see the communication come out.
2 questions. What are some examples of a subrecipient for board composition? Are there specific percentages for members, or does board composition depend on the demographics you serve? So I guess the first question, I think we already explained it, but Lydia, if you want to.
So there's no quotas that you have to have a certain percentage of your board be of a group. You want to make sure that there is an effort on making sure that people know and can participate in your board from every group in your service area. So it's, and even sometimes when you make the efforts, they do not raise their hand, they do not self-nominate. But as long as you can show that you are making an effort, that's what we want to see.
Heather, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. Ben, it looks like you have your hand raised, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Thank you. My Q&A hasn't been updating for about 20 minutes, so I'm not even sure that you guys have seen my questions. I had a quick one. First, I think I saw a Title VI FAQ PDF. I wasn't able to find that after searching the website. Will that be posted as well?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that link to the FAQs in the chat.
Perfect. And second, it is a little specific, but our area's largest non-English demographic group is other Indo-European. The second being other Asian. In situations like this, where we do have a very homogeneous population for the most part, which languages do we really need to display in intake areas?
So you want to address, if possible, every language that you know is significant in your service area. So you could have in the Asian languages, and even within that group, there's multiple different Asian languages possible that you may need to address. So knowing who comes into your institution or organization to get services, traditionally, knowing that, having some knowledge about the people that get your services is what you need to look at. That will inform what information you provide. So that part of the preparing a language access plan, the first part is do a needs assessment. And this may change because populations change. So regularly looking at, okay, who's coming to get services? What languages do they speak? Do we have LEP individuals and of what communities? And then working to meet those needs.
And I think on our response, we indicated that we're going to work with an outside organization to determine the actual need, because as far as languages, non-English languages, like you just mentioned, we're talking maybe 0.5% of everyone who we've ever interacted with in the past 5 years.
And it could be, let's say, it could be a small community, but that's the community that gets your services. So then you want to be able to serve them well, and you need to have language services for them.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And real quick, I want to point out we're getting some questions about where to access like the FAQs and other resources. So in the chat, I have put the links to the CDFI Funds Title VI webpage where you can access multiple resources. If you scroll down, you can see right here the user guide to completing the worksheet, the pre-recorded webinar on how to complete the worksheet, the FAQs, and also in the chat are links to the posters we've mentioned earlier. So please feel free to utilize those links. I'll turn it back over to you, Tonica.
Okay. Confirming that the worksheet is submitted once a year and not for every grant request, how does this relate to the new CDFI certification process, or is that separate? So the certification process is separate. The Title VI is only for grant programs. So if you're applying for CDFI, FATA, SDLP, CMF, then you will attach your Title VI worksheet to those grant opportunities. It's totally different from the certification process.
And this also does apply to the BEA program as well. So just if you're applying for any of these programs, just make sure when the notice of funding availabilities go live that you're very mindful of those deadlines that are noted in the NOFAs, because that's when you need to have the worksheet submitted. Just to reiterate the question about a worksheet being submitted once per year, yes, you need to submit one worksheet per calendar year if you're applying for federal financial assistance from the CDFI fund under one of its grants programs. The caveat to that is, let's say you're applying, you wanted to apply to the FA program, and that was, that application was live back in 23 and 24. But you did not submit your application until calendar year 24. You need to make sure that the worksheet that you're submitting is for calendar year 24. It needs to match the calendar year of the application submission.
Okay, next question. If we apply for an FA grant this year, when should we expect to hear from OCRE regarding any items that were non-compliant?
So we already have been talking to some of you, those that applied to the small dollar loan program and had things to correct or submit additional information already heard from us. And then we are getting ready to talk to those that still need to submit information for their NACA application. And the good thing is that once you get this corrected, you, for example, those that work for SDLP and corrected, cure the issues, then now if they're applying for additional funding, should not be hearing again from us. So it's a good incentive to get it done.
Okay, I think the next question is kind of similar to the one that you just answered, Lydia. When do you anticipate sending out letters to the recent FA applicants who might have issues of non-compliance? I am curious when exactly is the cure period? Thank you, appreciate all your help. If Lydia, if you want to speak on the time frame, but I can speak on as far as the timing that we give for cure period.
Sure. So I don't want to make a lot of promises, but this month we are getting ready. Hopefully soon you will hear from us if there is something that you need to cure.
Okay, and for the cure period, we normally give 30 days to cure. It's specified in your letter in the communication that's going out, so that you can reply back. So if we have any other issues or questions, we will send an email to you guys.
And I'll just add, don't panic when you hear that 30 days. As I said earlier on, we're here to help you. We're going to give you the technical assistance that you need to bring you into compliance. So if for some reason you can't get your language access plan in place within those 30 days, communicate that to us. Let us know. We're flexible. We're going to do what we can do to help get you into compliance, okay?
Mhm.
Thank you, Heather. So next question. So we should just submit the worksheet with the rest of an application by the grant applications deadline stated in the NOFA.
Mhm.
So in the NOFA, it does specify a specific date that is when your Title VI worksheet is due. So your Title VI worksheet is due way before you actually submit your application. That is part of our eligibility process. So in your NOFA, I would definitely pay attention to all deadlines that is stated in the NOFA.
Yeah, and there's no limitation, I think, to where this question might have been going. If you know you're going to be submitting an application in calendar year 24, go ahead and submit your worksheet early. Like it doesn't hurt anything.
No, it doesn't. The earlier, the better.
Mhm.
Next question. If you are a CDFI that provided small business loans, are your borrowers considered sub-recipients?
If your borrowers are, let's say, small businesses or individuals, no, they're beneficiaries of your program.
Okay. Our organization lends to affordable housing, low income tax credit developers. They are considered a subrecipient. It's a multiple question, so I'm gonna stop there.
It will depend on how this is set up. So tax credits are not considered financial assistance, but I don't know how you structure your relationship with them. So I don't want to speak to that.
Hey, Lydia, let's see. Let's take Jane off of mute. Give me 1 second because she's raised her hand, and then that way, because I don't think she's not referring to the new market. She's referring maybe to like affordable housing, low income housing tax
Mhm.
credit. So it sounds more like CMF. So let me get her off mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there she is.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I probably worded that a little odd, but so we actually provide a loan to the affordable housing developer. And a lot of the deals that we fund are funded partly also with low income housing tax credits. So my question is, so we provide them a loan, and I feel like it's similar to the previous question about the small businesses. So we're lending to the developers, and sometimes the developers are the owners and they manage the property as well. So are they considered a sub-recipient?
I would say no,
Okay.
without knowing all the details. So these are entities that are receiving the benefits of this funding, funding programs.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to work with them to make sure that they're not discriminating, I guess, to the residents who live in those apartments. And I would
Yeah.
assume if they are receiving low income housing tax credits, they have requirements, regulations on that side as well. So I almost feel like we're doubly, it's confirmed that they won't be discriminating against the residents.
Whenever you have housing, there's a lot of non-discrimination requirements. Some directly just by offering housing, you are covered by the Fair Housing Act. So,
Yeah.
But you also want, whenever you're doing this type of funding agreements, to include something in there to make sure that they know that they cannot discriminate and that your organization is telling them about this.
Do you have any examples of, like, are you thinking just like a one sentence statement, or should we actually be asking a question in our loan documents of making sure that they're not discriminating?
I don't know your process, but I would work with work with my counsel, your counsel, to
Okay.
make sure that your organization is covered. We want notice, right? We want to tell people about the protections and their obligation. You don't want your loans that you're providing, that funding, to be used to discriminate. So protecting your organization.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question is, can you just confirm that borrowers are not sub-recipients, only pass-through grantees are?
It will depend. I don't want, like, this is like getting into the legal advice, right? And I don't want to speak to something I don't have all the information about. But if you got financial assistance from the CDFI fund to provide low-cost loans to small businesses, let's say, those small businesses are your beneficiaries.
I would say too, Lydia, on this point, I would just encourage, if you have questions, if have borrowers versus sub-recipients, you'll always have the option to go ahead and submit a detailed service request, and then we can try to provide as much assistance as possible without providing legal advice, because that's not what we're here for. So please utilize that AMIS service request feature, and we can definitely get into the weeds on that.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Tonica.
How do you define low, moderate income individuals as it relates to the makeup of the board?
So from a civil rights perspective, we are looking at race, color, national origin, persons with disabilities, even age groups. I know that for CDFI fund programs, that is one of the target individuals that you want to help as community development institutions, right? So there's no civil rights statute that we enforce dealing with low income protections. That's more like a program question, but it's like, do you want to really be inclusive in your board? That's another group to consider.
Yeah, and I would emphasize this is different from certification purposes as well. Like to be a certified CDFI, there are other rules around board composition and whatnot. So I do just want to point that out so it's not to be confused with that.
Okay. I think this is our last question. We have an ERP grant already in progress. Are we required to submit the worksheet, and what is the due date?
Yeah, we can answer that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's no, you're off the hook. You already have the award. The worksheet wasn't in place when you applied for your CDFI ERP grant. However, that doesn't mean that you don't have to remain in compliance with Title VI. When you signed your assistance agreement with the CDFI fund, there are terms and conditions in there that you attested to being in compliance with and remaining in compliance with as part of receiving the funding from the CDFI fund. And as I mentioned earlier on, at any point, the CDFI fund, as part of that assistance agreement, does reserve the right to conduct random desk reviews or site visits. So please make sure that you do remain in compliance during the awards periods of performance. This, as Lydia mentioned earlier on, is a pre-award. The worksheet's a pre-award requirement. So anytime you're applying for federal financial assistance in the form of a grant from the CDFI fund, you need to have this completed by the deadlines cited in the applicable notice of funding availabilities.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Please feel free to raise your hand, type it in the chat. We've had a lot of great back and forth. Oh, I see one hand up. Let me see. Hold on, guys. It's not letting me pull up who has their hand raised. Tonica, while I'm doing that, if you want, it looks like we just got one more in the chat. If you want to answer.
We got two. Oh, it was Angela. Angela, do you want to just go ahead and speak?
Well, I can't find her on here. Hold on. There we go. All right, now they go. All right, you should be unmuted, Angela.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I was just wondering, so one on file each year, so we should just have one on file each year, the Title VI.
If you plan on applying for funding from the CDFI fund, yes. At the beginning of every calendar year, it is not going to do any harm in January to submit a Title VI worksheet if you get in the habit of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
We have another question. Does the board section pertain to our governing board or just planning/advisory boards?
What we're looking for is information about the boards or board that have influence or over the CDFI fund program. So if they make decisions or advice about the CDFI program, then we want answers. We want that to be in the response.
Okay. Are there any other questions or anyone raising their hand? Oh, got another one. Do you anticipate making any changes to the Title VI worksheet for the 2025 fiscal year? I know that it's still a while away.
Yeah,
I guess I would send that to Heather.
so we're still trying to work out the kinks with this one. So the next time I would anticipate any changes is when this would go up for renewal with the Paperwork Reduction Act, and we have to solicit feedback from the general public. There may be some changes then, but for now, I don't think this worksheet expires. Hold on, I have the number at the top of the worksheet. I want to say 2026 it expires. Give me one second. The website's weird, so hold on, let me pull up the worksheet again for you because it tells us up there. Okay, so it looks like, hopefully you guys can see the worksheet. We're good through 12/31 of 2025, so it will remain like that until then. But with that being said, if you have, we're always willing to accept your feedback. So if you have comments, questions, concerns, please, by all means, just submit those via service request. We're here to, as I said, set you guys up for success. So we want to do all we can to help you get to that point. Any other questions before we wrap up? The session's been great. We've had tons of questions, so thank you guys for your participation. Thank you again for hanging in with us there at the beginning as we worked through restarting this meeting about 10 times is what it felt like due to technical issues, but I'm glad Zoom decided to work for us today. And as we mentioned, we will be publishing this recording to our website. And we will send around a notice when it's available. But you can check out the Title VI webpage that the link I sent out in the chat earlier on. If you want to take a second and copy and paste those before we end the webinar so you have them handy. Angela, your hand's up again. Did you have another question or was that just up from earlier? I'm going to unmute.
Oh, that was just up from earlier. I guess I didn't lower it. Sorry.
No worries at all. All right, so just take a minute, copy and paste those links in the chat before we wrap up this webinar. Final call for questions. If you think of something at a later time, I sound like a broken record, but use that service request feature. Please don't hesitate to ask. And with that, I would like to pass along thank you to our colleagues at OCRE for taking your time out to answer all these questions. So thank you guys all for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.